She said, "If you don't like my friend's rude jokes, you can just pay and leave." The icy contempt in her voice cut through the clatter of expensive silverware and the low hum of the upscale restaurant, landing like a physical blow right in the center of our 10th anniversary dinner table. I sat frozen, my knuckles white where they gripped the edge of the linen tablecloth, surrounded by her closest friends. Jason, the smirking investment banker, Qley, with her perpetually arched eyebrows, and Marcus, who never missed a chance to look down his nose. The air, thick with the scent of seared steak and expensive perfume, suddenly felt suffocating, charged with a cruelty I hadn't fully grasped until this moment. The entire evening had been a relentless barrage of thinly veiled insults disguised as humor, aimed squarely at me. Jokes about my cushy teaching salary compared to their hedge fund bonuses. Snide remarks about the dad bod I'd supposedly let myself develop. And a particularly low blow from Jason about my late father's modest hardware store, implying I lacked ambition. Each barb drew sycophantic laughter from the table, and crucially, from her, my wife, Sarah, who met my pleading glances with dismissive shrugs or a hissed, "Relax, they're just teasing, don't be so sensitive." The humiliation was a slow burn, a corrosive acid eating away at the last vestiges of my dignity in this public space. My face felt hot, the expensive Cabernet Sauvignon I'd sipped turning sour in my stomach as Jason leaned back, swirling his glass, a predator toying with cornered prey. "Seriously, David," he drawled, his voice dripping with faux concern that couldn't mask the malice. "Lighten up. You look like you're about to snap." "Oh, wait," he chuckled, looking pointedly at the others. "That's probably just the permanent stress line from carrying Sarah's designer bags all these years. Must be heavy lifting on a teacher's budget." The table erupted again, Qley's tinkling laugh grating against my nerves, Marcus nodding sagely, and Sarah? Sarah laughed the loudest, her eyes crinkling with genuine amusement at my expense. That laugh, the one I used to find infectious, now sounded like shattering glass. It was the sound of 10 years of shared history, sacrifices, and quiet support being ground into dust for the entertainment of people who saw me as less than nothing. That's when the dam broke. A terrifying calm descended over me, washing away the heat of humiliation, leaving only icy clarity. Her earlier words echoed. "If you don't like it, you can just pay and leave." She was right. I could leave. Slowly, deliberately, I pushed my chair back, the scrape against the polished wood floor silencing the laughter instantly. Every eye at the table, and several from nearby diners, snapped to me. The sudden quiet was deafening. I reached into my jacket pocket, pulled out my worn leather wallet, and extracted a stack of bills. Without looking at the amount, I placed it neatly beside my untouched plate, enough to cover my share of this obscenely priced meal, plus a very generous tip for our young waiter, who had hovered nervously all evening, his expression radiating silent sympathy as he witnessed the carnage. "You're absolutely right, Sarah," I said, my voice unnervingly steady, cutting through the thick silence. It didn't tremble. It resonated with a finality that made her smirk falter. "I will leave." I paused, letting the weight of the moment settle, feeling the collective breath of the table held. Jason looked smug, Qley intrigued, Marcus bored. Sarah's eyes narrowed, a flicker of confusion replacing the amusement. "And since honesty seems to be the theme tonight," I continued, locking eyes solely with her, my gaze cold and unflinching, "let me share a joke of my own. Ready?" A beat of heavy silence. What's the real punchline to Jason constantly crashing our date nights and knowing his way around our house a little too well? I tilted my head slightly, a grim parody of Jason's earlier pose. Especially the layout of our bedroom. The effect was instantaneous and electric. Sarah's wine glass, halfway to her lips, slipped from her fingers. It hit the edge of her plate with a sharp crack before plummeting to the floor, exploding in a shower of crimson liquid and crystal shards that scattered across the expensive tiles like the fragments of our marriage. The sound was shockingly loud in the hushed restaurant. Jason didn't just pale, he turned a sickly shade of grayish white, the blood draining from his face so completely he looked like he might pass out. His cocky smirk vanished, replaced by pure, unadulterated terror. Qley gasped, a hand flying to her mouth, while Marcus actually leaned forward, suddenly riveted. The other diners were openly staring now, whispers starting to ripple through the room. Sarah stared at me, her face a mask of dawning horror, her mouth opening and closing soundlessly like a fish out of water. She knew I knew. The charade was over. Because I had known. For 3 agonizing months I'd known about the affair. The late work dinners, the sudden girls' weekends that coincided with Jason's business trips, the subtle distance in her touch, the unfamiliar scent on her clothes she blamed on a new perfume. The gut-wrenching suspicion had festered until I hired a discreet, expensive private investigator. The evidence was ironclad, meticulously gathered. Grainy photos of them entering hotels, copies of incriminating emails sent from her work account, itemized receipts for romantic dinners charged to our joint card, and the crown jewel, a damning, time-stamped video clip from the very nanny cam she had insisted we installed for security after a neighborhood scare. It showed Jason letting himself in with his key one Tuesday afternoon when I was at school, and Sarah arriving home early from her marketing job 20 minutes later. The audio was muffled, but their body language, the familiar way they moved together in our living room before heading towards the bedroom, spoke volumes. I'd carried that evidence like a live grenade, waiting for the right moment to pull the pin. Her public humiliation, her siding with these vipers against me on our anniversary, had finally provided the detonator. But the exquisite twist, the punchline she never saw coming, was nestled deep within the dry legalese of our prenuptial agreement, drafted by her own family's lawyer. Page 7, Clause 12, Infidelity Clause. It stipulated that in the event of proven adultery by either party, the guilty spouse forfeited all claims to spousal support, any share of the other's retirement accounts, and crucially, any claim to the marital home acquired after the marriage. The house, my grandmother's cottage we'd lovingly renovated together, funded significantly by the inheritance I received after her passing, would be mine, free and clear. Sarah had signed it without a second thought, confident it would only ever protect her assets. As I turned my back on the wreckage of the table, the spilled wine, the shattered glass, the stunned faces, I began to walk calmly towards the grand brass-framed exit doors. The stunned silence of the restaurant followed me, broken only by the muffled clink of glass being swept up. Behind me, Sarah found her voice, a raw, ragged scream tearing from her throat, laced with panic and fury. "David, you son of a bitch! You'll regret this! You'll get nothing!"
Her voice echoed in the suddenly quiet space. I didn't flinch. I didn't turn around. I kept walking, the heavy doors swinging open before me, letting in a cool rush of night air that felt like freedom. Regret? The only regret coiling in my gut was the years wasted, the love misplaced, the trust shattered. Not leaving, not exposing the truth. As the doors hissed shut behind me, muffling her escalating screams and the frantic murmurs of her friends, a grim, cold satisfaction settled over me, because the real punchline was still being written. Tomorrow morning, at precisely 9 a.m., my lawyer, a pit bull in a pantsuit named Evelyn Reed, would file divorce papers citing adultery, attaching a meticulously compiled dossier of evidence. Simultaneously, a separate encrypted email would land in the inbox of the chief compliance officer at Jason's prestigious, deeply conservative investment firm, an institution with a strict morality clause and a zero-tolerance policy for scandals. Attached would be carefully edited highlights of the nanny cam footage and the restaurant's own high-definition security feed, clearly capturing Jason's cruel jokes and Sarah's complicit laughter throughout the evening, culminating in his terrified reaction to my accusation. The video wouldn't show my revelation, protecting my legal strategy, but it would show enough of the public abuse, enough of Jason's undeniable guilt written across his face. The fallout would be nuclear. Sarah wouldn't just lose her husband. She'd lose the house, her financial safety net, and potentially her social standing when the truth exploded. Jason wouldn't just lose his mistress. He'd lose his career, his reputation, the very foundation of his carefully constructed, privileged life. Standing on the sidewalk, breathing in the cool night air, I hailed a cab. The faint sounds of chaos, still emanating from the restaurant, were like distant thunder. The joke, as it turned out, was finally, irrevocably, on them. The game was over, and I hadn't just walked away from the table. I'd flipped it.